Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me this week for Demystifying Money. I'm Misty Lynch, and I don't have a guest today, so just another solo episode because there's a couple things that have been going on, especially over the past few weeks, that I've been hearing from clients and that I've been thinking about when it comes to the amount of information that people are absorbing, seeing on the news, listening to, and what it's doing, how it's impacting them, at least when they've come to speak with me about their money, about their finances, and the extra amount of stress that I've seen from a lot of people. And so I wanted to just step back and talk a little bit about what's happening. And so I think that, all of us, maybe when we were younger, have seen the book Where's Waldo? So I think when I think about what's happening right now with the amount of news and the amount of information and the term flooding the zone, which is something that I've heard be the strategy that's being implemented, referred to as, it makes me think about Where's Waldo and how the point of that was to have a lot of distraction, a lot of very clever pictures that look similar, that kind of catch your eye and have you searching for this tiny Waldo that you're trying to find. And so I feel like when I think about all of the breaking news, how there seems to be a nonstop current of breaking news and big, and proclamations. And so I think that people should understand that this is absolutely intentional. And so if you think about if Where's Waldo was a game and the person who drew it was playing against you, how would they win? They would win by frustrating the person so much that they just quit. They just stop looking because they're overwhelmed, they're distracted. And so when I hear people say already, this is just too much, I can't, I'm out, I'm not going to pay attention, I want to move all my money to cash, I want to do this, it feels like they're on that other side and they've just already decided to give up. And I want you to know that that would be that's a win, for maybe some of these issues really do concern you. Maybe some of them are new to you. Maybe you feel overwhelmed by having to focus so much on so many different things. So I wanted to talk today for the person who is maybe struggling with information overload and see if they can maybe find some ways to limit the amount of decision fatigue, the amount of overwhelm, so that they can continue to function day to day and make smart decisions, smart financial decisions that do impact them, their family, their community. And so, one of the things I want people to start to think about is really defining your own goals and your own investment strategy. I want people to think about their long-term goals. And I want them to also think about the things that are coming up right now. And then maybe what's close, what's on the horizon, what could be a few years out. Maybe you've been thinking about retirement in a decade from now, but you might also want to renovate your home within the next 2 years, or maybe college is coming up in the fall. Think about all of the things that really are impacting you in your financial life. If you don't, think about the long term, the midterm, and the short term. Usually, the thing that is happening right now will get your attention. Whatever is on fire this moment will be the thing you focus on. Obviously, that's how our brains are structured. We're one of the only creatures on the planet that actually plans ahead and thinks about the future and isn't just thinking about survival and right now. So do that. Spend a little time thinking about those goals. And I want you to focus on your personal goals. There's lots of headlines, there's lots of things out there, but I do think, yes, those are important, but it's also very important to know yourself, to do some reflection, to do some inner work, looking at yourself and what do you want to do? What can you control today? What decisions can you make that might benefit you and your loved ones, the people you care about in the future? Instead of throwing your hands up and thinking that there's absolutely nothing you can do and that everything is out of your control. And so you're just going to do whatever makes you the happiest right now, whether that's overspending, whether that's over consuming, drinking, eating, all of those things that might provide that temporary dopamine hit. And that's what we'll do to feel better. So I think having a real plan, a real strategy, and really thinking about how you want to live, what you want your life to look like. Do you really want to move? Okay, we need to plan for that. That's a financial event. I hear that all the time. I want to move here. I'm just going to go here. But okay, then how are we going to start to plan to prepare to do that? What is involved in that? Because if we don't really think about it, then it just sounds like some idea that maybe helps us feel like we're making progress or doing something. But all of this could be, all of the things that you're thinking about could potentially happen. But usually it's going to require money and a plan. And then I want you to think about the sources of information that you're getting your news from. Is it your peers? Is it, um, is it the TV? Is it a particular podcast? Maybe that's how. So think about the information that you're getting. And a lot of times when it comes to even social media, our feeds are very well designed to keep showing us the things that we are keeping our eyes on longer. And so it's really easy to start to feel like other people are getting different news than you, or you're hearing all about something and somebody that you know might know nothing about it. So our news sources, it's very different than it ever has been. And also, I'd say one of the biggest commodity that exists in the world right now is our attention. So that's why we see the red flashing breaking news. It gets our eyes up off of the dinner table or wherever we are to look at the screen to think, oh my gosh, now I have to pay attention to that now. And our brains are designed to be on the lookout for danger. One of the analogies one of my friends used once was saying, imagine that you are given an experience in, a luxury Airbnb property, beautiful, has the pool and the beautiful linens and all of the things you could ever imagine. And then they also say, and there's also a snake on the property, you know, but have the best time. Your brain isn't going to be thinking about all of the amazing things, the nap you're going to take, the lounging you're going to do, this way. It's going to think about the snake that is somewhere on this property. And so when my friend mentioned that, I was thinking, like, of course, we're not going to see the beauty. We're not going to see the opportunity. We're going to be focused on that danger. And so when we see that flashing breaking news, the ticker on the screen all the time, all of the things that are popping up on our feeds, those notifications that we're getting that instantly take our attention away from where we were to where they want us. This is really something that we need to be aware of and limit and control. Maybe we don't need so many notifications. Maybe we can choose when we're going to get our news. Maybe we can choose who we trust in advance. Maybe we can do some digging on what are some of the maybe more reliable news sources, maybe some things that we feel like we actually can trust. Maybe financially, maybe you have a financial advisor and you feel like, you know what, I'm hearing all these things. I am going to go talk to her about it because those conversations, especially when people bring them to me, they help me understand, okay, this is what my clients are seeing. This might be what other people are seeing and thinking about too. This is important because for me, it might not get on my radar. I might not be thinking because I'm in a different industry. I'm looking at this stuff all the time. The headlines affect me differently. But I think it's really important that maybe you know that, okay, I don't know exactly what to do about this, but I know what my best next step might be. And when it comes to the notifications and it comes to your attention, I think that it is really important to continue to work on being very intentional about it because it's very easy to get distracted and we don't make a lot of progress. We might feel very busy. We might feel very overwhelmed and stressed when we go to bed, but maybe we haven't really accomplished all that much during that day to get us closer to our own goals. So I think it's very important to think about that. And maybe if it is something that is, it's important to understand what's going on, but potentially it might not be healthy to watch this for hours every day. Because remember, they want your attention, period. All of those programs, all of those podcasts, all of the things that are getting your attention for a longer period of time or all day long or that 24-hour news cycle, they're making money from your attention. There's an ad dollars, all of those things. So it's really important that you are in charge of that. Those are things that you can control. You can control where you spend your time, what you think about. So that's really important, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. And then I want people, especially going back to the financial end of things. And this might be if you're managing your own money, you don't have an investment advisor or financial planner helping you, and you're doing this on your own. I want you to have a plan for the way you manage money. And I want you to think about it. And I want you to think ahead of time when you're not panicked, when you're not stressed. I want you to get the education and the information to say, yes, there are going to be ups and downs in the market. There is going to be volatility. I'm going to create a plan for how I invest. Maybe you're somebody who's a dollar cost averager. Maybe you just put in the same amount of money into your investments every week and you don't try to time it. You just do it. Sometimes you're buying high, sometimes you're buying low. Very similar to people when they are investing in like their workplace 401k plan. They don't think every week, how much am I going to put in this week? They just do it. It's just kind of an automatic thing where they're putting in what they normally put in and they're buying whatever number of shares they can buy that week for that price. And that can be a way you do it. And if you're somebody who's also thinking about asset allocation and maybe you're thinking about, okay, maybe you have everything in the S&P 500 index, which a lot of people do. And maybe that does provide some diversification across large US growth companies, but it doesn't provide exposure to anything else. And maybe you decide that is okay with you for now. Maybe that is your plan and you stick to it. Or you might think about, maybe building out some more diversification across different markets, different asset classes, different countries. And so it's important to think about what your plan is. If you think ahead, it's much easier to execute it because if you're winging it and you're just picking up a stock here or there because somebody recommends it, you might not know when to sell it or what to do with it after you buy it. A lot of people will offer very quick, hot tips, but they never really tell you, and then watch this, and then this is when you're supposed to sell. So I think you have to have an idea in your head of what your plan is for your investment management. And I think that will keep you from potential emotional trading, which costs you money, can have tax consequences, can have a lot of different consequences, and you can't exactly know when you would jump back in because a lot of times people will tell me, I'll go back into, the stock market when things calm down or after the next recession. And I think people don't understand how difficult it actually is to know when that right time to go back in is. A lot of people got out of the market in 2008 and never got back in. Those people don't have the same retirement accounts that other people who stayed invested at that time did. So think about when you need this money, what your strategy is now, and stick to it, even if you have to write it down, even if you have to have your own investment policy statement in your head of this is how we do things. That will keep you on track. It should be it should be something that you at least consider, so you're not just led down whatever path someone else has mentioned to you if it doesn't really fit your appetite for risk or your financial time frame. And so using a financial advisor, obviously, I think that could be helpful too, or a financial planner, even if you manage your own investments. There's financial planners out there like me that actually will help you talk about that, look at that, even if you're the one pressing the button to make your trades. And then, yeah, definitely think about, those things that you're seeing online as far as, a lot of people are asking me about cryptocurrencies. They're asking about different things that they're seeing on social media. And I think those are all good questions to have. Things are changing, and I think those conversations are important. And if your advisor is just shutting you down immediately, telling you that this isn't don't bother me with this stuff. Just remember that you obviously can switch to someone who will listen to you because I think it is really interesting. And that's why a lot of us do what we do because the market can be very interesting and it does change. And there are new products, there's new services, there's new things that are really disruptive. And so it's interesting. And wanting to be on top of that is important. But also know that with any change and disruption, there can be very deep spikes up and down. And you have to be willing to stomach that or potentially diversify and broaden what you're doing. I want to talk also about investing in political environments. The world, every 4 years, there's usually about half the population that thinks that things are going to get better, and the other half thinks things are going to get worse. Over time, it could be we're a very large country. To think about everybody being happy all at once at the same time is unlikely. And also, it doesn't mean that you should every 4 years completely disengage or withdraw from the economy. You can't. It's impossible. But I do think what people could do is think about, again, obviously, how certain legislation, um, certain political, figures could change things. And so if you look back, the S&P 500 has averaged about 10% annual returns over the past century, regardless of political leadership. And there's often volatility after elections. And then usually we see the best year in the market around year 3 of a presidential term. And you wonder why that is. Well, the market likes it likes information and it likes to know what to expect. So when we have a new administration or the fourth year of a presidency where we might have a change, that's when things might get a little bit more volatile. And so it's relatively predictable over time that the stock market is a great place to be if you want to outpace inflation, period. Full stop. That's it. But I think that there's a lot of things that happen and it can be very overwhelming for people. And people can feel very passionate about their candidates winning or losing. But if you look back, so if we look back from like Barack Obama's administration, the S&P was up over 180% during his presidency. With Donald Trump's first term, the market rose about 70%. That was fueled by tax cuts and corporate earnings. And it was before COVID-19. And then with President Biden, the market did fluctuate with inflation concerns, but later it actually rebounded and there was an economic recovery. And so we've had different administrations. We've had very different, different crises, different economic cycles, and the market that have kind of driven the market. And so I think it is important to look kind of long term about the decisions you make now could not only affect you the next 4 years, but they could affect the rest of your life. So what it means for investors really is that, the stock market itself is usually more influenced by things like corporate earnings, interest rates, inflation. This all matters, and this matters regardless of who is in the White House. So those are things that those are very consistent, and we have information, and typically that's what your investment advisors are looking at is these earnings, and inflation is on everyone's mind. We're seeing the rising prices. And so I think for people who are maybe in business or maybe they're looking for new jobs, thinking about inflation and how much it costs to be you today, it might be getting more expensive. And if you're not paying attention, you might just be left struggling thinking, okay, well, I make this much money and I used to be able to afford all of these things and I can't anymore. But it's really looking at the numbers and looking at your own personal budget to figure out, okay, how is this impacting me? What do I need to do? Do I need to raise my prices as a business owner? Do I need to cut expenses? Do I need to re-examine everything that I'm doing and figure out, is there money that's kind of going out the door that I could redirect somewhere better towards something that I care about more? And really looking at your personal budget. Because all of these things that are happening, they're hard for one person to control, even a president. They're hard for one person to control. So if you think that, you know, you can focus on all of the different things that are going on in the world and not feel overwhelmed and not do it, I would say you start small. You start with your own information, your own spending, your own budget. What has inflation impacted for you? What has your, earnings looked like? Do you need to re-examine all of these things? And I think that that's where we could start to take some action, which will feel better if we feel helpless against the things that are much harder for one person to necessarily control. But also realize, with the volatility, maybe if you're looking at everything every single day, that could feel very stressful. But maybe if you're thinking about, your retirement account and you're somebody who's in your 40s, maybe you can handle some ups and downs because you have a few decades, you will have a few presidencies, you will have several economic cycles between now and when you need the money. So looking at that, pulling back and looking at that bigger picture to think, okay, on average, this is a good place to be to outpace inflation, which is growing. And so that could help you maybe make decisions that will have a real impact instead of some of the ones that might be emotional and might have a long-term negative consequence. And I think that it is very hard to time the market period. I do think that there are certain things that we can do to take advantage of different situations that we're in. Same way that people take advantage of the tax laws as they're written and can have some things that benefit them in their business by understanding the laws and the rules. And also, I think people can think about that when they invest as well, that potentially, there might be some opportunity in other types of businesses if, say, interest rates go down. And so I think it's important to kind of think big picture, have an understanding of the markets, of the economy, instead of just constantly thinking that we're due for a recession, things are going to get worse, things are going to get worse. Because the more you just tell yourself that, and the more you think that, the more your news feed is going to show you, yep, this is all, this is all terrible, this is all terrible, this is all terrible. And it just kind of reinforces those beliefs. And what that does, it keeps you from acting. It might keep you from ever investing. And then you might look back 30 years from now and be like, oh, wow, I should have. I wish I had done that. I hear that. I hear that a lot. But hindsight is 2020. But I do feel like for us, as we're making these decisions with our money, with our spending, with our lives, yes, there's pressure, there's things that matter, but we need to know what's coming in, what's going out, what am I going to need in the future? What if I want to be work optional someday? Maybe you love your job and you can never imagine leaving, but what if you wanted the option to not do that? That's going to require some saving and some investing for the future. So I think it's important, again, to get back to your goals. Maybe not think so much about this particular period of time. If you could think big picture, things will likely change. And if you're happy with things right now, okay, what can you do to take advantage of things as they are today? If you are optimistic about the economy right now, what can you do in your life, in your house to, maybe invest more or create a financial plan or an estate plan or look at your insurance look at all of the things that maybe you feel like could protect your money and help you keep it. Those are all things that it makes sense to do regardless of what you're seeing on the TV screen. And I know it's difficult, and I feel like if you have, maybe there is an issue that is of particular concern to you, it's okay to focus on that issue. And maybe that's your Waldo. Maybe that is what you are searching for. Maybe that is what you stay on top of and you're active about and you direct your money when it comes to donations and support. It's okay, to feel like you can focus on one thing and be really involved in that. It's that overwhelm of feeling like I can't do all of the things. And so I'll just do nothing. And that's what's going to lead you to become burnt out and overwhelmed and feel, apathy. And I think that's again, that might not be the goal, but maybe if you think of, trust a few different, maybe you trust a particular news source. Maybe you check in on the news at a certain point in the day. Maybe you shut off some of your notifications. Maybe you take some time to look at your financial plan, look at your budget, look at your business budget, or when it comes to, you maybe look at your paycheck stub. Where is the money coming in and going? Is there anything more that you can do today that can help you manage the overwhelm, manage the stress, make thoughtful decisions, and keep you feeling how you want to feel. You are in control of your thoughts and your feelings. Even if there's not much else that you can control, maybe you cannot change global warm, maybe you cannot change, certain, but you can choose the things that really do impact you, that matter to you. And you can decide, okay, this is where I want to spend my money. This is where I want to invest my money. I want to support maybe it's particular companies, and maybe that means that you increase your budget in certain areas so that you could shop at certain places. Those are things that you can control. And I think that I feel better when I know that my work, my money is being directed into places that I feel good about supporting. And I feel like at times when I'm overwhelmed, I think about the few people in my life that I want to make decisions to make them proud, to make them, to help them. I think about my children, I think about my husband, I think about my mom and my sister. I mean, it's not a huge list of people, but I think about, what's going to impact them. And those news stories I pay attention to. I think, if we can kind of control and contain where we spend our attention, it could help us get through really anything. But I hope everyone out there, if you don't have an advisor, if you don't have a person that you trust, or maybe there's, there's people online, there's all sorts of, you know, information out there. So I think if you can just kind of find, instead of, there is there's so much information. There's so many smart people. There's great people that are sharing content all the time. Find a couple that are really doing something that maybe that inspires you, and maybe you enjoy their content or you learn from them. And I think you can kind of limit the rest, or you can make sure that you're not just doom scrolling all day long. Because again, I know we're all we're all living in this society where we are, in information is truly at our fingertips, but try to be intentional. And I really appreciate, everyone listening to the podcast. If you're interested in working more on your own money mindset and your thoughts, head over to mistylynch.com. You can get a copy of my book there. In Demystifying Money, I wrote about, different journal prompts for different things for doing this internal work, which can be difficult. It could be easier to sometimes think about all the things that are going on around us that we can't control and feel like we're in a tailspin, instead of looking internally and thinking about how we can improve our own lives, what we can do, what we can take action to do. And so there's some tips in there and some journal prompts for you to really start to think about what do you care about? What is your philosophy? How do you think and feel about this? And so hopefully that can help. Or you can listen to other episodes of the podcast. I have a few people I've talked to lately who are helping people get organized. They're helping people get through, personal crises. And so if any of that can be helpful to you, then I hope you go back and listen. And again, thank you so much for joining, and we'll talk again next week. Don't forget to share with friends and family, and together let's demystify the world of money. Knowledge is the key to financial empowerment.